Before we dive into the blood-soaked madness of this 88 film slasher classic collection review, a quick heads up for listeners and viewers alike. These episodes come straight from the podcast Under the Stairs archives, recorded before the launch of the YouTube channel and long before video podcasts became part of the show. These reviews were originally crafted purely for audio. So if the production feels a little rougher around the edges or a little more stripped back than current episodes, that's because you're hearing the show in its earlier form, raw, passionate, and let's be honest, a little waffly at times. Whether you're revisiting these reviews or discovering them for the first time, please sit back and relax and enjoy this trip through the golden age of mass killers, inventive gore, and VH era nightmares. This podcast is not safe for work and will feature movie spoilers. It will feature scenes described of a graphic nature. It will contain language which most listeners may find offensive. Welcome to the podcast Under the Stairs. Hi everyone and welcome to the podcast Under the Stairs. This is your 88 films slasher classic collection series of reviews. I'm Duncan. Welcome to the show. Yeah, we have been running these for quite some time now this year. Basically since January. We're up to disc number 13. What? That's right. And I'll be honest, this is one that I've been kinda dreading because it will involve us starting to franchise, that's right, franchise, the next 3 of these episodes. So essentially, every second week over the next 6 weeks, we will be looking at one of the first 3 installments of the Children of the Corn franchise. That's right, just 1 through 3, thank God. But we're kicking off right at the start. This number 13 is Children of the Corn. Now, I know what you're thinking. Is this movie a slasher movie? I would love to say that we're going to answer that after the first break, but if you don't already know the answer to that, then I can't help you. That's all I'm saying about that. But yeah, we will be reviewing that movie after the first break. But before we get to that, this is your final episode of what has been a jam-packed, surprisingly heavy week of horror podcast content. We have had some fun, we've had some thrills, we've had some spills, we've seen some truly amazing new releases, and it feels kind of almost anticlimactic to end up with this movie, but we're going to do our best. Next week, we're going to be swinging into a brand new week worth of reviews, concluding starting tomorrow with our Mad Max franchise as part of the Russian Roulette franchise retrospective non-genre series. We're going to be doing Mad Max Fury Road. I'll be joined by Scott McKenzie from Scotland vs Evil to do that review. On Thursday you get a very special bonus review of a movie which came to Netflix, I want to say about 2 months ago, maybe 3 months ago. We're finally getting around to reviewing The Perfection. And then over the weekend, maybe Annabelle, I'm not quite sure. I'm aiming for a review of Annabelle either kind of weekend next week or maybe early the week after, as well as The Dead Don't Die, which is a new Jim Jarmusch movie, which is also at the end of next week, so there'll be a review for that one forthcoming as well. But before we get into all that jazz, let's take a very short break just now. You're going to hear promos for shows that I love, you're going to hear the trailer for Children of the Corn, and when we return it's disc 13 of the Slasher Classics collection by 88 films, reviewed by this guy, representing the podcast Under the Stairs. All that and more coming right up right after this.
Hey everybody, this is Tim Dorn.
My name is Gareth Evans.
Hi, I'm Nacho Vigalondo, director of Time Crimes and Open Windows.
Hey, this is Graham Skipper.
Hola, soy Macarena Gomez.
Hello, this is #1 New York Times bestselling author Scott Sigler.
Yo, monkeys, it's me, DDP.
And you are listening to
The Little
Pod
Of horrors.
Which, as you know, is
the best damn idea
since premarital sex.
on Halloween. Jason Voorhees!
it'll make you come hard.
And that's not a bad thing. That monkey is a good thing. Bam!
You can find The Little Pot of Horrors on simplysyndicated.com and on iTunes.
Every child is afraid of the dark, the unknown, the nightmare. In Gatlin, Nebraska, that nightmare is in the corn. Stephen King's Children of the Corn.
Praise God! Praise the Lord!
From Stephen King, the author of Carrie, The Shining, The Dead Zone, and Christine, an adult nightmare. Children of the Corn.
I'm here, Lord! I'm ready!
Stephen King's Children of the Corn, an adult nightmare.
And welcome back. You just heard the trailer for this feature movie review of disc number 13 of the Slasher Classics collection by 88 Films. We are doing Stephen King's Children of the Corn. According to the 88 Films website, it says the following: An adult nightmare returns on Blu-ray. Adapted from a popular Stephen King short story, the original Children of the Corn from 1984 became one of the most successful of the legendary author's page-to-screen adaptations. This hit horror sickie headlines Linda Hamilton from The Terminator and Peter Horton from TV's 30-something as a travelling couple who unwittingly become trapped in the fictional town of Gatlin, Nebraska, and find themselves stalked by a creepy clan of young cultists. No adult is allowed to survive in Gatlin, or else their prophecy predicts the harvest will collapse. Suffice to say, all hell soon breaks loose. Literally, as demonic entities ensue that the Hamiltons and their husband are in for a long night. Co-starring popular genre face Courtney Gaines of The Burbs, and given a malevolent Midwestern touch by director Fritz Kirsch of Tough Turf, Children of the Corn remains one of the most spine-tingling terror titles of the 1980s. The special features in here are the life, legacy and legend of Donald P. Borchers. It's an intimate celebration of the career of a B-movie lore most recognised mavericks. So yeah, you get tons of people chatting about that. It's quite a long one actually, and worth a watch. It's 83 minutes long, so there's a ton of stuff to mine in there. As well as that, you get a theatrical trailer, an 88 Films trailer reel, and technical specs of the disc are it's region locked to the UK, so it's region B. The picture format is HD 1080p 185.1. The audio format is LPCM stereo, English language, subtitles are English, OVS, and the movie runs about an hour and a half in length. So yeah, that's your stuff in the background. Yeah, I've been putting off this one for a while. Not for this series, but just putting off this one for a while. I am compulsively have a tendency to buy things, Blu-ray wise. As soon as someone slaps a collector's tag on it, my wallet starts to groan. And when 88 Films first announced they were doing this, they released them in what I now think is an out-of-print box set of 3. And I was like, I need to own that, I need to have that now. So, surely, that's what I did. I purchased the box set. That must be about 3.5 years ago, minimum, maybe even longer than that, and it is laying the shrink wrap until this week. Never opened it, never had any intention of opening it. The reason behind it is, of the Children of the Corn movies, I know for a fact I'd seen this one before. I have a sneaky suspicion I have either seen the second or third one, but I don't know which one it is that I have seen, and I've seen none of them beyond that. I know we're up to like 7 or 8 or something like that now. In fact, there was one either supposed to come out last year or there's one coming out this year, and I never had the fondest memories of this one. I would have seen this one first time through at an impressionable age, maybe very late 80s, very early 90s. This would have been a VHS rental back in the day where I could coerce a parent of mine to allow me to pick a movie to watch, and Children of the Corn is definitely on that list. I had very strong memories of Malachi kind of flooding back. And to be honest, even back then, I was never the biggest fan of this movie at all. And I was kind of thinking maybe there was something in it that was maybe aimed more towards adults. Maybe this is an adult horror movie, and as a kind of, not quite a teenager, but a young kid watching this movie, just didn't gravitate towards it because the kids are the evil ones in this movie. So I thought maybe that was going to be the case. Interestingly enough, in my kind of mid-teenage years, I got a bootleg copy of Who Can Kill a Child. And that movie weirdly connected with me, even though, once again, the kids are dicks in that movie. So I don't know. I genuinely don't know. I just remember not having the fondest of memories. So much so that I had literally in my memory written out Linda Hamilton. I could not remember her being in this movie at all, which is bonkers, considering this is post-Terminator, so, you know, it's Linda Hamilton. You know what I'm saying? Here's big actress star at that point. But yeah, let's talk about this one. And I suppose we should just address the elephant in the room straight away, get out of the way, and then we don't have to deal with it again. This is not a slasher movie. I'm not sure what the rationale is with 88 films in these collections. I get a feeling, I mean, there are a lot of deaths involving bladed instruments, but as soon as you start bringing demons and, you know, kind of supernatural elements into the movie, you are at that point kind of removing it from what I would say ostensibly makes a slasher movie. Some people may want to argue that. I think it's quite difficult to argue that, if I'm honest. I mean, this movie is a king tale for sure, but it's not a slasher movie. Surely not. And that's... I have issues with this slasher collection because of that. At the moment, I think we're batting maybe a 50-50 average, 13 movies into the collection, on what we could say comfortably and agree on collectively, this is a slasher movie. And the rest are all shades of kind of tangentially linked to out and out not. So yeah, there's that in the back of my head to keep in mind when we do this one. And to be honest, that complaint is most likely going to happen through the next two reviews, unless the series takes a turn that I'm not aware of. These movies shouldn't, I feel, be represented that way. That being said, if this was a kind of marketing ploy to make sure people bought them because they were buying the collection, then well played, 88 films. I think if you're going to spend time doing a remaster on this one, and by the way, a thumping good remaster, the Children of the Corn Blu-ray looks great. If you're going to spend that time doing the remaster of it, then maybe that's your kind of ploy to get people to buy it. I can kind of half respect it. But yeah, you did a bang up job with this one. This looks really crisp, really clean. Yeah, let's just get into the movie. So yeah, we have Peter Horton's character, Linda Hamilton's character. They're travelling to this new town where Peter Horton is going to be the new Doctor. It's all very Pet Sematary. They're going to head there. However, this town recently had a bit of an uprising where the kids killed all their parents at the request of Isaac. This little kid who looks a lot older than he probably is, has kind of this weird kind of almost adult-like features superimposed on a child's face. It's creepy. It's creepy. And he's kind of head disciple Malachi, who they have this prophecy that, you know, these adults, if there are adults in the town, the crops won't grow, they need the crops to survive, but that there will be a man and woman who, in his prophecy, will come and they must be sacrificed. And if they're not sacrificed, then everything will go tits up, basically. And that's what you get. You get Linda Hamilton and Peter Horton show up. The kids are doing what they do. But you have also, in amongst that, a conversation about religion, you know, the poisonous aspects of blindly following faith, which Stephen King, I think, genuinely, and this is one of his short stories that I have read, I think it handles a lot better in novel form than it is handled necessarily in movie form here. But yeah, so, I mean, you've got that as a kind of undercurrent here. Obviously, it's playing into, what do they call that? Pedophilia? Is it pedophilia? Fear of kids? I think that's me. Maybe I've just made that up. If I have, I apologise. But yeah, the fear of kids ultimately growing up to murder and usurp their parents. So there's a bit of that in here. And there's some cool things to see. I mean, some of the kill sequences are pretty cool. I love the scenes of the kids just appearing like the birds in Hitchcock's The Birds, you know, where they just appear en group, en masse, in the background of a shot, and you're like, that's kind of creepy. But the movie really doesn't hold up. It has some serious issues with actors in this one. Notwithstanding, Malachi's face is the most punchable face of a kid I've ever seen in a movie ever. And his Outlander! All the way through the movie. Oh, for fuck's sake, put a sock in it and shut up. Same with Isaac. Isaac's creepy in a way which at first seems kind of creepy, but the longer the movie goes on, it just gets kind of grating. And then the whole supernatural element is, I think, great on paper, but in the movie kind of breaks the kind of fourth wall of interest for me and introduces something that I don't think serves any purpose in the story. You know, are we supposed to then think, well, you know what, the kids were right all along, look at them, you know, trying to keep these evil deities away, and if only we'd listen to these modern little bastards. I don't know what the pivot is, and I don't know what it's trying to do or what it's trying to swing out with, but I don't necessarily think that works as well. I mean, the movie's an hour and a half long, and it feels every second of being an hour and a half, sadly. But, like I said before, there's some good performances. I like Peter Horton's character, I like Linda Hamilton. I think they're a nice couple, and some of their goofy interactions kind of make me smile. The setting of Gatlin as well is infinitely creepy, as is the cornfields. The scenes of like the kind of full crucifixions are, you know, just in that setting are just infinitely weird. It kind of reminds me a little bit of Outlast 2, the computer game, where they've obviously seen Children of the Corn and leaned heavily into that. But that works kind of cool for it. Yeah, it's just it's an unlikely King movie for me, if you know what I mean, for his adaptations. It's one of these ones which is unlikely, and on the kind of artwork for the Blu-ray, it says, you know, from the author of Carrie, The Shining, The Dead Zone and Christine, 4 adaptations I'd much rather be watching than Children of the Corn, and thanks for reminding me how much better they are than this movie. I don't know, it's just not a great movie. It's kind of subpar King adaptation fare. It's kind of subpar 80s horror movie, and I imagine that at the time it probably had more resonance, but nowadays looking back at it, some of those demonic effects are not great. Like really, really, really not great. Kind of early, not even CGI, but just early digital effects, which look terrible remastered. They really, 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 really do. However, the bit where Isaac becomes like a demon, his makeup is bitchin', and had we had more of that in the movie, I would have been totally on board. But we just don't. I mean, this is one of these ones where this is like we're entering the height of King's power. You know, he's had all these great movies done, and people are just clambering for anything they can adapt. And just because you can does not mean you should. And I think that's the legacy of Children of the Corn for me. Is you're taking not a work which I necessarily think would adapt into a scary or interesting movie, and then making it into a movie version which, to be honest, is not scary and not overly interesting either, which is exactly why you shouldn't have made it in the first place. But I remember this one being big at the time. I remember it having a bit of a following. I think there is still a following out there amongst the King heads. That's what they're calling themselves, I imagine. But for me, yeah, it just doesn't really gravitate. It doesn't really hold up. There's some moments I really do enjoy, but overall, I mean, I can say I liked it, but I'd go no further than that. I mean, this is a 3 out of 5 if ever there was a 3 out of 5 star movie. And I get the feeling as we move on through the next two, that number is going to drop and drop. So yeah, keep your eyes peeled for that. Like I said before, the presentation is immaculate, and the 83-minute docu feature on there is well worth the cost of this disc. Some of the industry stories are absolutely brilliant. So I mean, if you find it in a sale or in a deal, I mean, pick this one up. I wouldn't go rushing out picking up the sequels, even though I've not seen them. I've not heard great things. But yeah, I mean, if you're a fan of this movie and you still haven't pulled the trigger, pull the trigger, because it does look like a bit of money was spent on this restoration, which I appreciate. If you're going to take the effort of putting something out in Blu-ray, then make the effort of making it good, which they have clearly done here. Notwithstanding that, though, it's still a 3 out of 5 for Children of the Corn. Right, I'm going to take my final break. When I come back, I'm closing out the show, and I'm doing it right after this. And you've been listening to the podcast Under the Stairs. This has been disc number 13 of the 88 Films Slasher Classic Collection. We were looking at Children of the Corn. In 2 weeks' time, we turn our attention to disc number 14, and yeah, I've already told you, it means we're going to be doing Children of the Corn 2, The Final Sacrifice. According to the 88 Films website, it says this: a young couple uncovered the horrors that lay hidden in the small community of Gatlin, Nebraska. 3 years earlier, all the adults suffered a terrible fate at the hands of their own sons and daughters, victims of a bloody cult of human sacrifice. Now the bodies have been discovered, and the neighbouring townsfolk of Hemmingford agree to shelter the traumatised children, unaware that they are opening their doors to an awesome force that will threaten their very existence. Featuring some malicious set pieces and a script co-written by Gilbert Adler, producer of Superman Returns and Valkyrie, Children of the Corn 2, The Final Sacrifice, carves up a thrilling entry into a winning franchise formula. The special features here includes the original work print, the first positive print of Children of the Corn 2, The Final Sacrifice, used in the editing process. It has English subtitles as an option, which tells you that maybe things are light when we've got that in here as a special feature. The original theatrical trailer and reversible sleeve featuring original artwork. The technical specs, once again, region lock to region B. Picture format 1080p 1781. Audio format is LPCM stereo. The language is English, and the runtime about an hour and a half again. So yeah, nice and quick, and it will be done hopefully. But yeah, that is what is upcoming in 2 weeks' time. There's a multitude of ways to check out podcasts Under the Stairs. As always, I say check us out on Apple Podcasts, come across, subscribe to the feed and leave us a rating and a review. It's the best way to support us on that platform. You can check us out at Stitcher, Smart Radio, SoundCloud, Google Play, TuneIn and of course Spotify. Whilst you're at it, visit our website, it's teapotscast.com, and if you want to buy a poster or a pin, that money coming back to help us do what we do under the stairs, you can do that by going to teapotscast.bigcartel.com. We're on Facebook in 2 places. If you want to interact with other listeners, chat about horror and get involved with all different sorts of horror conversations and ways of interacting with the show, then that's facebook.com/groups/teapotscast. If, however, you're only interested in when the shows are dropping, occasionally check out a live stream or a Thursday, then that's the group page, facebook.com/teapotscast. You can interact with myself and the Baz and the twin prongs of social media sexiness, Instagram and Twitter. Both can be followed at TeapotsCast. The podcast Under the Stairs will return tomorrow with the final instalment of our Russian Roulette franchise retrospective non-genre series looking at the Mad Max quadrilogy. It's Mad Max Fury Road, myself and Scott McKenzie from Scott and Liam vs Evil reviewing that movie for you. But until then, wherever you are, whatever the time zone is and whatever you're up to in this big bad world of ours, please take care of yourselves out there. This is Duncan McLeish broadcasting live from Under the Stairs, and I am signing off.